Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are learning Mishna Gittin, Parak Chapter 5, Mishnah Mishnah 4. Okay. Yesaimim shesamachu eitz labalabayis. Translated, that means orphans who relied on a householder, meaning on a person. Meaning these Yesaimim, they're orphans. They don't know how to take care of their estate. They inherited an estate. They're not really capable of taking care of it properly. So they relied on a person. Nothing official. A person who took it upon himself to take care of them. Oy shemina lahen avina apitropis. Or their father appointed. Apitropis means an administrator for orphans. That's what the word apitropis is. That's the word used for talking about an administrator for orphans. Or the father appointed for them this administrator. Chayev la'aser pereiseyen. He has to tithe their fruits. So there are fruits that they have in their estate. They trumas, maisris, etc. have not been separated. There's no father to separate it. They're minors. They can't separate it. They're not able to separate it halachically. So now they may be minors, but we don't want them eating forbidden food, which is what it is. It's tevel. It's forbidden food. We don't want them doing that. So we need someone maisris for them. Now, what the issue is that, but again, who owns these fruits? You have to own it, or you have to be the shliach, the agent, or the owner of the fruits to separate shumas and maisris. And because we're talking about minors here, they can't even appoint a shliach, an agent for themselves. So therefore, it's the apitropis who steps in and takes care of it. And this apitropis, now, how does he take care of it? I mean, he's not the owner. How does he take care of it? Well, the answer is that once he basically gets this status of being the administrator, the Beis Din, the rabbinical court, meaning the rabbis, gave him the ownership of these things to be able to do it. Meaning they can give him the ownership of this produce if they want to.
For the time being.
Right. To be able to go ahead and to separate the shumas and maisris. So they go ahead and they transfer the ownership of the produce to the administrator so that he can be able to make the separations to tithe it for them. Now, this administrator, the Mishnah talked about it, how to become the administrator. So the first part of the Mishnah is they relied on him. There was no appointment. The father didn't appoint, nor did the Beis Din, the rabbinical court. Did the rabbis appoint him? Meaning the rabbinical court of that area who would be taking care of this. Neither did they go ahead and appoint him. And we're going to see there is such a thing as an administrator appointed by the Beis Din, by the rabbinical court. But in this case, I mean, it doesn't mention it in this part of the Mishnah, but it's included. But you have the first case that no one appointed him. But at the end of the day, if this is the person who took it upon himself to go ahead and to take care of them, he becomes the de facto apitropis. He becomes the administrator, and he is given the power to be able to separate the trumas and maisris. And then the Mishnah mentions, let's say the father appointed an apitropis. Okay, that's very official, and although not mentioned, as I just said, if the Beis Din of the rabbinical court appoints, it's the same thing. The Mishnah says chayiv, he's obligated. He's got to make sure, and not only does he make sure to tithe it, the point is, if we're telling him he's obligated to do it, that means he has the ability to do it, which is because the sages gave him the ownership of the produce to be able to separate it for them. Okay, next. Apitropis sheminohu avi yasaimim yishava. The administrator that was appointed by the father of the orphans before he died, he swears. What does he swear? We'll explain in a second. We know who Beis Din, if the rabbinical court were the ones that appointed him, lo yishaba, he does not swear. So there is a very interesting halacha here that there is a halacha, an administrator who was appointed to manage the affairs of orphans. There is such a shua, such a oath that the administrator has to swear to the orphans when they reach adulthood that he did not keep any of their property for himself. Meaning he's taking care of them when they can't take care. When they reach adulthood, then they can't take care. And that's when he's done. His job is over. When that job is over, there's a rabbinic obligation to swear to them, even if they have no claim. They have no claim against him. Nonetheless, there is a halacha for the administrator to swear, to basically leave clean. There should be no one that is suspecting him of ever taking anything for himself. The orphans themselves should not suspect him. And therefore, there is this halacha that he should swear. Now, the Mishnah says, though, that halacha about the apitrapas swearing, the Mishnah here says, is only talking about an apitrapas appointed by the father. But an apitrapas that was appointed by the rabbinical court, he does not swear. What's the difference? The difference is because if we assume, according to this part of the Mishnah, we're going to see soon there's an argument, but according to this opinion of the Mishnah, we assume that this person took upon himself to take care of the orphans when the father asked him, and he's not getting paid for this. Not getting paid. So why is he doing it? Must be that he's doing it because he owes the father a favor. And because he owes the father a favor, even if at the end of the day he's going to have to swear, which is not a easy thing to do, even though he knows he has to swear at the end of the job, he's still going to take the job. It's not going to discourage him from taking the job because he's doing it as a favor back for the father. But if the Beis Din appoints him, and there's no, favor to the Beis Din, if the Beis Din appoints him as apitrapas, but at the end he has to swear, he's going to say, I'm not getting involved in this. Why should I get involved in this? And therefore, we say that if you need the Beis Din to actually appoint him, the halacha is going to be that at the end of the job, he is not going to have to swear. Abba Shaul Omer, the sage Abba Shaul said, Chilaf advarim, the other way around. If it is the Beis Din that appointed him, he swears. If the father appointed him, he doesn't swear. Why? Because according to Abba Shaul, the gain is the other way around. If Beis Din appoints this person, as an apitrapas, as a manager, as administrator, that means Beis Din considers him a capable and trustworthy person. That is very good for the resume. That is very good for your reputation that the Beis Din appointed you. And therefore, you're willing to do it, even if it means you got to swear at the end. But in the case of the father, where we say he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart, at the end of the day, if it's going to lead into having to swear at the end of the job, that's something that could discourage people, and therefore, according to Abba Shaul, where the father appoints, that's where he doesn't swear. Now the Mishnah gets into something else. Hametame, if you make someone else's produce, someone else's food tameh. Now what we're talking about here is how does making somebody else's? Now this is a case of damaging. The point is going to be that you went ahead and you messed this person up by doing what you did, but we're talking about something called a hezek she'ein nikar, a damage that's not recognizable. If it's not a physical damage, not a recognizable damage, it's a halachic damage, so to speak, then actually, according to Torah law, you don't have to pay for it. It's not considered a damage. And therefore, here are some examples of that. Hametame, a Kohen has truma, and what do? You went ahead and you made his truma tameh. You made it tameh. Your tameh, let's say, and you touched it, you messed it up for him now. He can't eat it. And that's a loss, because now what are you going to do with it? There's not really much you can do with truma that's tameh. Even Kohanim can only use it for fuel. Then you have hamadama, someone who mixes. Mixes means you had chulin, you had regular edible grain, and you mixed truma into that. Now the halacha is that if you have 100 times more chulin of the regular, edible food, 100 times more than the truma that's mixed in, the truma becomes bottled, becomes nullified. But if you mix it into less, now you've got this mixture of grain, let's say, you don't know what's truma, what's chulin, and this person, again, who is not a Kohen, what's he going to do with it? The only thing he can do now is sell it to a Kohen. But because there's not much demand for it, he's not going to get too much money for it. So if you wanted to mix that up, his regular grain would have gotten X amount of money. Now that you mix the truma into it, and he can eat it, the only one now who can eat it are Kohanim, it's a loss. Now the next case is hamenasech. Menasech means that he makes another person's wine forbidden. Now we know something called yayin nesach. Wine you poured for the purposes of idol worship is forbidden to have benefit from. Now, in this case, what happened is the guy went ahead and he poured yayin esech into somebody else's wine. And the law is yayin esech, that kind of wine that's forbidden because it was used for idol worship, cannot become batal, cannot become nullified. Can't become nullified. So therefore, this guy's wine is messed up now. It's messed up to the point that's asar b'ana, can have benefit from it, because we don't know what is the wine that's permissible, what's the wine that's forbidden. So that's a big loss. Says the Mishnah in all these cases, b'shoigeg pater. If you did it accidentally, you're pater, you're exempt. Now, if I accidentally damage you, in a regular sense, I accidentally break your window, I still have to pay for it. We don't say, oh, it's an accident. You have to pay for it. But in this case, as we say, if it was done by accident, you're exempt. Why? Because, as I said before, these kinds of damages, that's called hezek she'ein nikar, and not recognizable, not seeable damage, according to Torah law, you're not obligated to pay. And therefore, but there's going to be a rabbinic fine for doing it. There's going to be a rabbinic punishment for doing it. So therefore, if you did it, you did it unintentionally, you're exempt, following Torah law. The mezid chayiv. But if you did it intentionally, then already we say no. Then the Chacham, the sages, instituted that he has to pay. Why? Because the reason is the rabbis impose this penalty for the benefit of society, so that people will be deterred from causing even non-physical damage. Meaning, if you want to get back at somebody, take some yayin esech, pour it into his wine, and you'll really mess him up. You'll mess up to the point that he can't use his wine, and you won't have to pay. Mm-hmm. And therefore, you do it intentionally. The Chachamim said, no, you got to pay to deter people from using it, from weaponizing it. Mm-hmm. Now, the last example of the Mishnah is HaKohanim shepiglu ba'mikdash mezidin chayev. Kohanim who disqualified someone's sacrifice because they made it pigul, which I'll explain soon. Here too, we say mezidin chayev. If he did it intentionally, he's got to pay for it, the Kohen. Yeah. Again, this is another example of a damage that's not recognizable. But we're afraid if the Kohen wants to get back at this guy who's bringing the carbon, and he makes his carbon pigul, again, he'll mess up the guy. We'll explain soon what pigul is and how it affects a person, and he won't have to pay for it. So therefore, here too, they said, if he does it intentionally, he has to pay. Now, what's going on here? Pigul is an offering that is disqualified because the Kohen had performed any of its 4 essential services, which are slaughtering the animal, receiving its blood, carrying the blood to the altar, and applying the blood to the altar, had in mind while doing so that the offering will be eaten or burned after the set time for these activities. That's what he had in mind, right? He's shechting the animal, and he says this animal is going to be eaten beyond its time. Okay, that's what he has in mind. That it's going to be eaten beyond its time, is going to be burned beyond its time. It's not even his carbon. But if he has that kind of thought, that's called pigul. That disqualifies the carbon.
Even though it's not physical.
Correct. It still disqualifies it. Mm-hmm. Now, and because it's not physical, according to Torah law, there's no payment for it. But the thing is like this, but the Chachamim said, but you just messed this guy up. Mm-hmm. Right? He wanted to bring a carbon, and you messed him up. Now, what's the loss involved? So it really depends, because there's 2 types of ways you can bring a carbon. There's something called a neder and something called a nedava. A neder means you say, it is upon me to bring a shlomim. It is upon me to bring a shlomim offering, right? Which is, right? Now, if you say it's upon me, and that animal, for some reason, let's say it's upon me, and the animal that you brought got messed up. Like in this case, you said it's upon me to bring a shlamim, and the Kohen made it pigul. You got to bring another carbon? Yes, you do. Because your promise, your commitment was, it's upon me to bring a shlamim. Okay. Well, if the shlamim didn't work, you didn't bring a shlamim. So that's clearly that causes a monetary loss for the person. He's got to get buy another animal and bring it. But let's say you went ahead and you said, Hare zu shlamim. You pointed to a specific animal and you said, this animal is a shlamim. So my obligation is only to bring that animal as a shlamim. And if it becomes pigul, will I have to bring another carbon? No, I will not. Nonetheless, it's a big disappointment, right? Here it is, I'm trying to bring a carbon, trying to do a mitzvah, bringing a carbon, and you messed it up. And therefore, the halacha is, again, even in this case, the Kohen, if he did it intentionally, is going to have to pay him back. it's going to have to pay him back for the animal that he messed up. But again, because it's a fine, therefore it's only applicable if he did it intentionally. Did it unintentionally, then I don't know how you do people unintentionally exactly, but I don't know. I guess he was not a very learned Kohen, and he thought these kinds of thoughts wouldn't make a difference, and therefore was unintentional. Then, when it's unintentional, then we don't make the person pay. And in the cases before, for instance, when we spoke about when you're, let's say, pouring the yayin nesech, and we say you did it unintentionally. What does it mean you did it unintentionally? What was unintentional about it? So it can be unintentional because you didn't know that it was yayin nesech. You didn't know that it was forbidden wine. Or maybe you're, again, not learned to the point that you don't realize that makes things forbidden. And the same thing with the other cases, making it impure, mixing it together. It could have been that you didn't know that you were mixing it. You didn't know truma and stuff were being involved here. Or you didn't know its effects from the halachic point. But again, in all these cases, because it's not recognizable, according to Torah law, you'd be exempt. And but if you do it intentionally, the Chachamim find you in order to deter a person from doing this kind of thing to somebody else. Yeah. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.